Hi, I'm Faith. Welcome to my channel. You probably don't know me since I'm still a pretty small channel, but I'm really happy that you reached here. So take a cup of hot chocolate or something and just sit there. Let me talk to you about this piece you're watching right now. This illustration took me around 6 hours. I didn't record the whole process because I actually lost the first portion of the clip. To be honest, I didn't really know where I was going to with this illustration. I knew what kind of shading I wanted to do, but I didn't know how. Even if I've done it before, I didn't have the confidence to replicate that because when I've done it, I just let everything flow without even knowing what I was doing. And because of this, I actually have a lot of problems during the process. In this piece, I just struggle a lot and had to just take a lot of pauses. Not because I needed to rest my hand or something like that, but because I just didn't know how to continue shading the illustration. I just didn't know how. I think I have a pretty big lack of knowledge regarding volume, color, and lighting and shading. However, the piece shined for itself at the end of the process, which actually left me really satisfied because it showed the improvement at the growth respect my past illustrations with this kind of style, and that made me feel really good. However, again, this was really complicated for me. For this piece, I used a photograph as a reference. I knew I wanted a piece that showed the head to the bust, but I didn't really have an established idea of how I wanted it to be. So I just went out there, opened Pinterest, and searched for something that, at least fit this standard, and just that. And the pose changed a lot. I still struggle a lot in everything related to anatomy. That's why I had to simplify the pose, even if it wasn't that complicated since it only showed the face to the bust. But I still struggle a lot. I had to simplify a lot of elements and adapt it to something I could actually do. One example of that is the hand. The hand was more complicated than what is shown in this illustration, so I just made it simpler. Yeah, so it's not really the same anymore to what the reference showed. I think our struggle with hands and feet, for example, is something that actually affect not just me or a small portion of the art community, but a lot, like a really big part of them. It's something that we tend to avoid since the very start of a process, or at least not the start when we are kids, for example, and we still draw everything, but a little bit after, when we start getting serious, and with that we start getting more and more strict with ourselves. So we just tend to avoid everything we can't do, so the piece ends up being a little bit more nourished, something you can watch and say, okay, this has much more less errors than it would if I just left the hands there. However, this is the precise reason I think it's good to just force yourself to draw everything you don't know about. Let me explain. I had to force myself to draw a second eye because when I was younger, I just avoided to draw the second eye. I just drew one of them, usually the right eye. The other one, I just hide it because I didn't know how to do it. But I eventually started to draw it more. Stop hiding it. And now I don't need to do that. Even if you see me struggling with the eyes here, I just don't need to do that anymore. That's why now I'm forcing myself to include hands in my pieces. I struggle a lot, yeah, that's true. And I have to simplify them if they are finished pieces. Yeah, that's true as well. But I'm actually drawing them. I'm not hiding them. And by doing so, I'm forcing myself to practice them. I'm forcing myself to look out for hand poses. I'm forcing myself to sit down and draw them. Even if I struggle, even if they're, I don't know, simple, I'm drawing them. And I think this is a really important thing. Force yourself to draw things you don't like. I still avoiding a lot of things I don't know how to draw. Guys, for example. But I'm into it. Like, I'm working on it. And I think I really noticed that this method is working. So force yourself to draw things you don't like if you really need to draw them. The use of references is something really important. Thanks to them, I had to stop and analyze and comprehend what I'm watching on different kind of poses, different kind of bodies, and at the same time, made my pieces different, have more variety, just don't be the same thing, which I unfortunately fall on every single time because I just don't like to leave my comfort zone. Nobody does. Even so, since I'm started using references for I think most of my art pieces, I really noticed a big improvement in how I actually draw not just the pose, but different kinds of parts of the body. And that's why I think this is a thing I would recommend to anyone. Use references. I think there are still people out there who are against references for some reason. I don't really understand, but don't mind them. Returning to the main topic, which is our piece here, I've had a lot of complications, especially in the area of the face, and more specifically, the eyes. I just didn't know what to do with them. It's something that actually changed a lot in my style, much more than I would like to. Maybe it's not that noticeable on my Instagram feed, but every single time I draw, I just change the style of the eyes constantly. And this played against me in this piece, especially because I was recording it. And I don't like to struggle a lot when I have to air something out there, in this case, YouTube. So this kind of thing stressed me even more. So yeah. However, I finally figured out a way to make them work and look good, and a way that I'm actually satisfied with them. This also happened with the nose, which, to be honest, wasn't that good at first either. And the mouth was also a flaw in this illustration. It wasn't that bad, but it just wasn't good either. So I just made some changes, and I think it gives more personality to the illustration because I got to show her teeth, which for a character like Draculaura, it's a really good choice. I think this gave her more personality, so I stuck with it. Even if I didn't like that much how it turned out, it was way better than how it was. Another element that I didn't like that much was that piece of cloth Draculaura has that covers her neck and her shoulders. In the sketch, it looked pretty good, but when I started shading, it turned out weird. It turned out really weird, but I had to stop myself from actually erasing everything and try to draw it again from zero, at least that part. And at this point, I spent a lot of time in this illustration, and it wasn't as bad for me to say, oh yeah, we have to erase all these elements and draw it again. I needed a break from that, so I chose to stick with it and left it. After all, if you keep doing that kind of thing, going back and forth, because you don't like an element from your illustration, you are never going to finish, and sometimes it makes it actually worse. I'm talking from experience. I end up wasting more time in something that didn't actually look that bad. So this is a recommendation for myself, for you guys. It's good to correct things that actually need correction, to fix them. But other things don't really need them, or they are not as important. at the end of the day, I think I'm pretty satisfied with the results of this illustration. I'm someone who gets really stressed of how their work turns out, but I think we have to be more compassionate to ourselves. Improvement takes time, and you're not going to see a big chunk of improvement in the same piece. You're not going to see that, so don't look for that. I think everyone deserves a piece of art to be proud of, and I actually think this is the one for me. This is the piece of art I'm really proud of. I chose Draculaura for this illustration because alongside with Claudine, they are my favorite characters of the Monster High franchise. I enjoyed a lot the series, the movies, the collectibles, and the dolls, even if I didn't have one. So when I found out that Mattel was going to launch a remake of the original Monster High first dolls, I was just like, oh, this is going to be a new beginning. And I just wanted to commemorate that for me by doing this piece of Draculaura. I'm not someone who enjoys a lot to make fan arts. I'm more like this kind of artist, more Oxy oriented, but sometimes I also like to take a break from that and just draw other kinds of stuff I also enjoy. Well, so this is all I had to say for this video today. I'm really grateful if you stuck with me to the end of this video. I hope you enjoy with me this 11 minutes of video, me speaking about this piece of illustration, my struggles with it, some tips, the importance of references, and just Monster High. Stay tuned and see you the next video. Bye!
Thank you.